I see that we're on air.
Yep.
I don't know, I'm used to looking at my computer where I see the little video. But
We're all set?
Yes.
Okay.
thank you.
We are going to call this meeting at 8:03 for the Town of Niskayuna Police and Public Safety meeting. Call to order. I'm going to take attendance. I have Councilman McPartlin here. Supervisor Syed is running a little bit late, but she will be in attendance. Myself, Deputy Chief Stevens. I see that Deputy Supervisor Faminsky's here. Town Clerk Michelle Martinelli is here as well. Town Attorney Briggs is present. Judge Scagnelli will be here shortly. Judge Swinton is in attendance. I don't see Confidential Secretary Brian Backus. I have Deputy Town Attorney Finnan. I have a PBA representative, Anthony Comanzo. I have Chief Lanefelter present, Comptroller Lam, Seth Goldstein, and then I have some members in the audience as well. Kathy Carlock and Ben Mastriani. I don't see Laura. I think Laura was going to attend it at some point as well. Robertson. Okay. The first matter of order, we have to make a motion for the September 7th, 2021 meeting minutes to be accepted. Do I have a motion for that?
Motion to accept the May minutes.
I'll second that.
Any opposed to that? Seeing as none, that will be passed.
All in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry
Aye.
about that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm new at this as we're learning.
That's why we're-
I appreciate that. All right. Okay. So moving right on into operations. The police department is currently testing the 5th body camera system. As we've spoken about in previous public safety committee meetings, we're working towards test piloting a number of different variations of body cams in order to find one that best meets our needs internally. There's a lot of moving parts to that regarding the storage of data, how we're transmitting that data, how we're potentially presenting that data. This 5th version is called ProVision. Right now, feedback is limited, and we're just kind of monitoring that situation as we move along. The second police reform implementation, that was a typo on the minutes, or excuse me, the agenda. It wasn't the first, it was the second police reform implementation task force meeting was held on September 23rd of 21. And the next meeting is currently to be determined for October. I know at that meeting, there was some assignments. I believe Judge Zonderman was the committee chair. Is that correct, Paul?
Yes,
Correct.
he was elected as chair.
Yeah. Judge Zonderman was elected as chair.
And we look forward to moving forward with those folks and implementing those recommendations. Fleet and equipment, our new portable radios are at the UCC. We're currently waiting on lapel microphones. I spoke with Kevin Spawn, the director of the UCC. It's kind of the holdup at this point. The projected date of implementation is being pushed into October simply because of waiting for that equipment. I want to say a special thank you to Sergeant Nick Party for assisting as part of the implementation process of these radios. Part of the purchase was sort of this plastic holster that wasn't intended necessarily for everyday use. It may be, we have to see how that goes, but he was able to take some of our older radio holsters and with his newfound hobby of being a Leatherman, kind of give us the ability to facilitate some of the new buttons and retrofit our old ones. So we're hoping that those will work for some of the rank and file to assist with their radios on their gun belts. So thank you to him for that.
So you think, is that going to be a permanent solution, or are we going to be looking for
Nope.
other holsters?
I already have Sergeant Frenier has written up a proposal and done some research on some other ones. I'm going to work on with the deputy chief. Not everyone carries their radio that way, so that holster system that's been provided in the purchase is probably going to work for the vast majority of our staff. There are probably 9 or 10 we anticipate that we may have to work towards a long-term solution depending on how it works. We got to kind of play it by ear. But I do have some research being done. And like I said, I got to talk to the deputy chief about that later today. It's one of the things to look towards potentially making a small equipment purchase for those things. From a building standpoint, Charlie Bergami is looking to get the lock system program installed on the administration computers. I spoke to him this month. We're going to schedule a date and get that done. Something else he's looking for, I asked him to price out garage door openers for the police department Sallyport door. At some point, we had to upgrade our system on the Sallyport door. And at that time, every patrol vehicle had a garage door opener. This is where we potentially unload people in our custody and also at times keep things of evidentiary value, depending on their size and nature, inside the Sallyport. And so we need to attempt to find some garage door openers to replace the old ones, and he's working on that, and we'll see how that goes from a pricing standpoint. From training, the active shooter and rescue task force training that we've been talking about over as many months is still going to be held on October 16th and 17th. The training location has been moved to Scotia. Ourselves, as well as the District 1 firefighters, are still going to assist with sending instructors and trainees as available. We greatly appreciate, Schenectady was always the lead on this. It's just a venue change. And we greatly appreciate them being the primary training coordinators for this event, and hopefully look forward to hosting this event in upcoming years in Niskuna. Citizen issues. I was contacted by Michael McLean. He was requesting that South Country Club Drive at Mayfair be examined. His concern is that there's a line of sight issue coming off of South Country as you're headed, I believe it's southbound, and Mayfair does not have a stop sign as it's headed towards Rosendale Road. I spoke to him about the various process that we need to kind of look for identified problems to make sure that we have adequate solutions if we have those identified problems. And I'm going to be working with him and kind of going and get some eyes on those things moving forward to understand what it is we're really looking at.
So is that that this is not an uncontrolled intersection?
It is currently a controlled intersection from the standpoint of South Country Club has a stop sign on it. And so does Mayfair as you're headed towards, and that would be considered westbound towards the golf club. However, there is not a stop sign headed eastbound towards Rosendale, I don't believe. So there were some line of sight issues. Again, I don't know if it's possible that the sign placement on the stop sign placement on South Country Club as you're headed south. And again, I wasn't able to drive over there so far, but I did look on Google Maps. It appears that stop sign is kind of set back quite a ways, and there are some hedges and some shrubbery that kind of potentially would give some line of sight issues if you were then looking down Mayfair for oncoming traffic purposes.
We could talk to Ray about that because we have trimmed other trees. If they're in the right of way, the town right of way, those things can be trimmed back
Okay.
to increase the line of sight. So we can talk to Ray. And in some instances, he has relocated signs that, maybe were put too far away from the edge of the road or could be placed in a better location.
Excellent. We also received from Citizen Issues, Mary Foreman contacted us requesting extra attention be given to pedestrian traffic who are crossing for school hours at the Balltown Road and Knott Street intersection. Mrs. Foreman suggested the possible solution of a crossing guard. We've had discussions, I know in the past in the Public Safety Committee meetings about not being necessarily to obtain crossing guards. That's not a job that everybody wants to do or has the ability to do. So that's a difficult lift to just find staffing if that was a recommendation at some point, if we identify that as being a problem. I did request that our Zone 1 patrol car be stationed available during these times to assist with pedestrian traffic and ask for some real-time kind of estimates from our officers that are out there as to the number of pedestrians that are in those intersections. And it does appear from the 2 dates that I was given that there is a pretty substantial amount of students that are crossing there. So I think we need to talk to the school about that a little bit as well.
There is at that intersection electronic signs, so crosswalk signs,
there's
correct? Are they not being used?
Nope, that's something that we need to look at to see if there, and when I say talk to the school, maybe a further education for the students about how to properly use what already exists there,
Right.
in that crosswalk and those signs. But again, it's something I think we need to just have an ongoing dialogue with the school about and kind of monitor to make sure that our students are, safely utilizing what already exists there. So,
Because it seems like in her email that maybe the person wasn't using the crosswalk,
sure,
electronic crosswalk signs that are there.
certainly.
Oh, we have one member of the audience who
Oh,
wants
Laura's
to
here.
speak. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, get the microphone or come up here so we can hear you, okay? Otherwise, people won't be able to hear you. Sure.
Okay, thank you. I'm not here for the crosswalks, but I just figured I'd ask a question. since
We need
we're
you to, ma'am,
talking about-
we need you to identify your name
I'm
and
Kathy
address.
Carlock. And I was just curious to know when the students, when they hit the crosswalk button, how long of a time do they have to cross safely before it changes?
So I understand you correctly. You're asking what the preset timing of how long that intersection facilitates for pedestrian traffic between the light cycles. I don't have that specific time frame.
Okay, because that may be something to look into
Okay.
that gives the kids enough time to cross, because a lot of times you don't have enough time to cross it, or it changes, quickly. And if you have, few students that are not walking together, but are, one behind each other, then maybe it could be that if it was increased the time, that they would have enough time to cross safely. Just,
Yeah, so when we put out that, again, this was just an estimated survey amongst two police officers on the 1st and the 4th. The total number of pedestrians and students, when I asked them to look at it, it wasn't just specific to that intersection. It was also to kind of that Rankin Road, Balltown Road area, as well as we had previously received an email a couple months ago regarding crossing over near the co-op at Knott Street. So it was kind of that general area was what I was looking at. But we certainly we can kind of look at the timing. I think that those are pretty standard things that are set by, I don't know if they're set by DOT standards or how they do that, but
Okay.
I'll have
I
to
don't
look into
know
that more.
either.
Yeah, I'll have to look
I
into that
just
more.
figured
Look at-
I'd bring that up.
Your concern is the amount of time that basically everything is red and that they can cross.
Yes, before the light turns again,
Yeah.
that they have enough time to get across safely.
We'd have to look at that.
Just something
Oh,
to
interesting point.
ponder.
Sure. The next item is, and thank goodness Laura's here. Laura Robertson requested that we speak about the Complete Streets memo for Wyoming Ave. It is attached to the agenda. Laura, would you like to speak about it?
Sorry. I was trying to attend remotely today, but I couldn't find the link. So sorry. So Chief Kochan and I talked about this. It was referred to the Complete Streets Committee from Chief Wall, and I think it was because this committee was hearing a lot of concerns about Wyoming Ave, and so the Complete Streets studied it for a little while. They looked at doing like an event with something temporary just to see like what would work, but it's a very short section of Wyoming that the town of Niskuna owns, and the only thing they could think of there, which I talked about with Chief Kochan, was a speed table. But then we talked about the cost of installing steep speed tables, and if we wanted to see those throughout the old Niskuna, and we're not quite there yet. So the conclusion they came to was really this recommendation for stop signs there, and for further study of like the intersection of Lexington and Baker. And one of the things that we discussed, and you can get into it too if you want, Chief, is that these are just volunteer recommendations based on, what they heard from the public, the information that Deputy Chief Stevens had sent them. There really doesn't seem to be a speeding issue on Wyoming. It's a volume. And so this is really just because they studied the surrounding intersections that were similar, and they all had stop signs. And they went and talked to a couple people in the town, and I talked to a couple people in the town asking if they knew why there are these legacy yield signs, and nobody could say the reason that there was one. And I know that we've changed some of them over in the past, so that's where this recommendation came from. But it may be worthwhile to just have an engineer look at sight lines and make sure that the signs are cited properly and everything, because again, this is just a recommendation committee. But I think that one of the things that we heard, which you guys may have heard, is that when people are trying to like walk down Baker, because there's a yield sign, cars aren't like looking and slowing, and they've had a couple near misses with like moms pushing, strollers and some other things, because the cars just aren't. It's a weird trajectory intersection, so putting a stop sign there as contrary to stop signs don't control speed. So normally putting a stop sign somewhere is not a good idea. In this particular instance, the yield sign is probably, in their opinion, less safe than a stop sign. But again, just an opinion.
So when you talk about, and I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on this, when you talk about having the stop sign there, and I tried to go back and watch the complete streets from the July meeting to understand, I believe it was Bill Chapman. Who's the committee chair? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Bill
I
Chapman.
think it was him who spoke about, and I don't have the data currently in front of me, but what Deputy Chief Stevens had sent them was the average speed during the study was 25 miles an hour for that roadway, which is 5 miles an hour less than what the current speed limit on the roadway is. So we have identified that it's not a speed, and we're talking about volume at that point. And it is a controlled intersection with a yield sign. I did do, just to put it on the record, a quick query of our accidents over the past 3 years, and it doesn't appear as though there is crash data for any of those intersections that would substantiate changes at this point either, based on what I observed. I didn't really see any accidents over there.
Yeah. And like we had said, that's just our recommendation based on the input that we received. If the data doesn't support it, then the data doesn't support it. And they're also fine with that. But the one thing that they had heard, which obviously won't show up in the data and is really just a sort of a colorful version of people's lives, really, is that they're near misses with pedestrians.
Okay.
So,
Are those do we know if the community's reporting that to us about those things?
no, I don't know, but
Okay.
I would doubt it, generally speaking.
Phil, I don't know if you have any.
No, yeah, as you said, we'd hope that the residents would report those types of things because that helps with information
Sure.
for the department to, evaluate these things. I think it's important. We'll get Ray out there to take a look at line of sight. And I know they had talked about, removing some blacktop, trying to change the intersection. So I think we should, I don't know if Ray's looked at that or not, but that's something we could possibly look at.
Yeah, there's a variety of things you could do with that memo. And I think even just clearing the brush would be helpful.
Yeah, and we know there's a volume issue on Wyoming.
Sure.
There's no question about it. And I've said this before and I can say it again, GPS. If you're going from Schenectady to Niskayuna or vice versa, your GPS is going to, for some reason, take you down Wyoming.
Yes, I was driving from lunch on Upper Union Street to Aqueduct Park yesterday, and I was curious which way Google would say was the fastest. And it takes you down Wyoming from there.
Right. Fastest 1 minute more, it took you 1 minute less as opposed to staying on the regular, main roads, if you will.
Yeah. And we've talked about that too, for sure. There's software now that routes you down Wyoming, but we've reached out because this has been a question from some other roads too. Like, can you request for these software companies not to do that? And they absolutely do not care.
No. So
There is a way around it. What we can do is put in that the road is closed or something, and it'll actually it'll route you around the road, and you just need a certain number of reports to say that the road is actually closed for the software to pick up and route people around it.
interesting. We should maybe explore some of that. It's not only Wyoming, but also Story Ave. I mean, I've lived in this town pretty much my whole life, and I've never seen so many people making that left going down Story Ave from Balltown Road.
The other thing that you might consider doing is throwing some speed traps up the ways to slow people down.
Well, we know, as you said, we've done traffic studies on Wyoming without, showing 25 miles and not much. Oh, you're saying on
Yeah.
waves.
Seth and I had
Oh.
talked about, yes. We're not gonna say they're fake. We're gonna say they're real until proven otherwise for speed traps, right?
Well, these are some things that we may need to explore to sort of work with the technology that's out there right now to possibly alleviate some of these issues. So we'll have to explore that.
We certainly thank the Complete Streets for looking at this intersection, and we can definitely continue, the ongoing dialogue regarding it. Does anybody else have any other questions or concerns regarding that specific topic. Mr. Mastroni, do you want to?
How are you? Yeah, just want to, I've been on Wyoming for 7 years. Okay, I bought my aunt's house about 7 years ago. We're talking, it's a cut through. Okay, everybody knows it's a cut through. So when I first got there, I came here complaining because of that. And Officer Stevens, and I'm trying to think of the other names, set up some traps. And eventually the speed sign going from Schenectady to Niskayuna got put up. That's there now. Okay, also a counter. But before that, Officer Stevens counted for us, and it's about 560 cars a day that go by. Okay. So you have about 2,000 a year. So I had a FOIL report done of the last 4 years for a speeding ticket, and there weren't any. So, you know, you really can't say it's patrolled with that data. Besides the volume issue, there is a speed issue, which I've been saying since I've been coming here, going towards Schenectady. And I proved it last week, because what happens is people are coming and taking a right off of Baker onto Wyoming. It's an extra wide street. Same if they're taking a left and they're just coming in, zooming up towards Schenectady. Okay. So with a neighbor, I went by about 20 yards before the sign that changes to Schenectady, 30 miles an hour. Okay. Then I parked and walked up, and we stood there for 20 minutes. Everybody was doing at least over 40. So I've been saying for years, there is a speeding issue. It's going the other way. Now, if you park on the street and try to get them, you know, usually one time they came to my place, and which is down towards the end of the road, which you're really not going to get speeders, and parked in the driveway. Okay. But as far as near misses go, I'm the one that sort of got that going, because I worked at GE and we used to track, you know, almost getting hit by a crane or almost. There was a couple emails I had sent to a couple people in this room. I know Yasmin and some other people, that there was a confrontation at the end of Wyoming going into Baker, where somebody was coming down, somebody was walking a dog. And I think either because of the yield or the bushes, they didn't see him. They were going fast. They didn't stop. And the guy was like, whoa. And I had sent some pictures of it to Yasmin and some other people in the group of, you know, got out of the car and they were screaming. And then I called the police. But there are a lot. One with a baby carriage, okay, with the neighbor. You know, I understand the GPS and all that sort of thing, but the last Complete Streets meeting, which has been great, by the way, mentioned go to Mordella in between Sand Creek and Central, and you see all the speed bumps, just like exit 11. You take it right off of Route 9, and there's 9 speed bumps going down to Route 9 from the top of the road. The one on Mordella I mentioned, my brother was on the committee. The people actually paid for those that live there, but they're effective. I'm not saying we need 9, but I'm telling you, if we had 1, 3/4 of the way up Wyoming, it would alleviate a lot of the volume, because they want to come that way, because it's a drag strip. There's nothing to stop you. You just turn on the road and go. So, you know, the stop sign instead of a yield makes sense there in Girling, and especially at Lexington and Baker, because they just sort of stop, and they don't have to stop right now. They take a right, bang a left on Wyoming, you know, no through truck sign, something to show when you turn, you know, stay to the side, so you're not almost coming into somebody. So I wanted to mention that. I know in Clifton Park, they got some grants from DOT, like 400,000 for some crosswalks and for some, to alert people of, you know, this or that. I don't know if that's been, if that's up for grabs too or not. But there's got to be something to deter people from just zipping over, because that's what they're doing. And I understand the GPS and that, in you know, the volume, but you know, if we just say, well, yeah, that's sort of the way it is, and that, you know, I pay Niskayuna taxes, not Schenectady taxes, and the people coming through there, 9 out of 10 are from Schenectady. So I'm just wondering if anything can be done. Like I said, the study, we got down to stop signs and stuff like that. But if you don't have a bump and you don't have something to deter the people going through, it's not going to change. That's a lot of cars for a road that's, what, a quarter of a mile long? 550 cars a day.
Yeah, and I certainly don't have, the data on what those neighboring roads look like as far as how many
Yeah.
they have coming down, either for a comparative analysis of, is that a lot versus the other roads that are also used to cut through. I certainly will look into putting some sort of a traffic study headed back towards Schenectady.
Yeah, that's where it is.
Okay.
That's
Have you
where-
spoken to Schenectady about the fact, because
I
obviously
called-
part of that roadway is Schenectady.
Yeah, I
and if
called
we're
once
saying
and
they're
said,
speeding
"Look,
into
there's
Schenectady,
an
yeah.
issue and this, and I'm trying to remember the officer's name. And they said they're aware of it, but I go that way a lot to go down. I know they're finally doing some paving in front of Sheraton Apartments. But, in the 7 years, I've never seen a Schenectady cop car, police car there. So I asked them, I just said, just to let you know, the poor girl on the corner of McClellan sold her house. She's telling me it's a drag strip. She's not only has it going one way, she has it going McClellan, that way. That's another road that I mentioned to them that should have a stop going both ways, not just the one.
In Schenectady, you're talking about on the McClellan side. Okay.
Yeah.
No, we can, Mr. Mastriani, I appreciate you being here. We certainly take these matters serious, and we can do that traffic study, head back in towards Schenectady to kind of see what a volume and a speed is, and continue this dialogue moving forward, to
Yeah,
see
like I
what we
said,
can
the key is
identify.
don't park on the street if it's possible. And it's about 20 yards before the sign where you're leaving Niskayuna. When I'm out in front or something, they're just going by, and after you look for 2 seconds, you can't see them anymore. Because there's nothing to stop you. In fact, if you turn over near the school and come through and go through Baker and Lake, all that stuff, there isn't a stop sign. There isn't a speed sign. All the way through. If you turn off of Balltown, or I'm sorry, 146, and you turn and go all the way down, turn off by Baker, turn onto Wyoming and go all the way up, there's not a speed limit sign.
I'm trying to picture what you're saying. So off of Balltown to Baker.
I went both ways. One way there was at the beginning.
Okay.
But if you go through, I think it was near the road near the high school, and you turn onto Baker and go all the way through Old Niskayuna and finally get to Wyoming and turn and go up, there's no speed limit sign. I mean, I understand the allure of Old Niskayuna, the lighting at night, the whole thing. You're trying to make it sort of, it's not 1930 anymore. So
Well-
like I said, I live it every day. It's frustrating. So
We'll certainly make it a continued point of emphasis, from a patrol perspective. And like I said, I'll look into that traffic study headed back towards Schenectady
yeah,
to see what that looks like. And then we can talk about it a little bit more about maybe some other
yeah.
remedies or solutions.
Yeah, and
to
to
that.
stop at Lexington and Baker going that way, because I don't know how that's not a stop going that way. That's real bad.
Mr. Mastriani, is there one of your neighbors that you might know that would allow us to park in the area that you're speaking about? You said your house is too far down.
Yeah, they're stopped by then. I could ask them.
Well, we'd appreciate that. That might help.
Yeah,
If
somebody
you're
that just
recommending
bought a
that we
house
need
there.
to be further up the street,
yeah.
would help.
Because if you park in the street, which I used to, and a neighbor used to, both of our cars got hit. The mirror got blown away. So, we that helps. But when you're doing a speed thing like that, one time they were nice enough to do it, you're going to slow down. And they tried to put in a tree and it wouldn't work, I guess, or something. And
well, we can.
they
do that.
tried.
Okay.
We could coordinate with Seth at the same time when you decide, we do the speed thing, and then we can do what you're recommending on Waze or whatever, and do that and see if we can
Yeah.
try to
I know it's not easy.
think outside the box.
Well, no, we certainly appreciate you being here, and that's a quality of life issue that we want to address if at all possible. And like I said, we'll see kind of moving forward. I'll go with the deputy chief about how we can set up another traphic study to go that opposite direction.
Okay.
So we understand what that data looks like as well. So,
Yeah, sorry it took so long, but I
No.
wanted to.
All right.
yes, sir.
But I have another appointment, and would it be okay if we discuss the court issue? that's
Absolutely.
on
Sure.
the agenda?
Certainly.
I'm sure Judge Swinton has other things. and I discussed this with Town Attorney Briggs earlier in the week. Pre-COVID, the Schenectady County was going to a centralized arraignment program. Prior to that, what would happen is if a NISCUNA officer arrested somebody at 2 o'clock in the morning, either Judge Swinton and I would come out, arraign that person just like I did this morning, and either bail them or send them on their way. They were going to implement a centralized arraignment program. Under that program, the local municipality would make the arrest, take the defendant to the jail. Then they would have a rotation of judges on call. That judge would go to the jail, arraign the person. This is a result of years of litigation. Public defenders have to be with their clients at every stage of the criminal proceeding. Well, COVID hit, and what had happened was they went to under Governor Cuomo's emergency plan, we went to a virtual arraignment part, which meant they'd arrest him, take him to the jail, and the judge on duty would arraign them virtually. When the emergency was lifted, we were now back to our own town doing it. They want to implement it to a centralized part where each town judge would share rotation. It works out roughly once every 6 weeks, and arraign the arrestees from all over the county at the county jail. In order to do that, you folks, the town board needs to pass a resolution allowing that to happen. The benefit to the town is that if we don't do it, let's say the NISCUNA PD makes an arrest. Okay, they then have to babysit the arrestee until the town judge arraigns that person. That ties up personnel. If you do the centralized arraignment part, the NISCUNA police officer would take the arrestee, book him, take him to the county jail, pass him off there, and be returned to service. And then, I would recommend that the town board pass that resolution, and I can entertain any questions you may have.
No, I'm in favor of this. You and both Judge Swinton are in favor of it. Sounds like a good idea.
It worked out well under the under the virtual plan, except we had some kinks to work out with the technology. But otherwise, it worked out pretty well. And with that, I'll bid you a day. And
Okay.
unless Judge Swinton has something to say, you're good. Who wants the speaking stick? Thanks.
Thanks, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
The Judge Scagnelli provided me with the resolution, which I've passed on to Elena. She's going to propose that, and Bill, I don't suspect you'll
Yeah, let's
sponsor that, correct?
sponsor that and get it done.
Okay, thank you.
Just jumping back to citizen concerns. Larry Boswick proposed a no parking zone on the north side of Hexham Road West. I did make contact with Mr. Boswick, and we discussed what the actual issue is. I think this can potentially be alleviated at this point with some direct conversation with one of the neighbors regarding this parking issue. And I'm going to see that that gets handled appropriately. Jackie and Tom, and I'm going to not pronounce this correctly, but Citroniti, sent me an email regarding concern about River Road, discussed about how it changes from a 45 to a 40 near Black Park and G Circle, and that due to the ongoing continued development in that area, they were requesting it to move down to 35 miles an hour. We know that's a heavily trafficked roadway for both Capel and for GE's research. It's also a thoroughfare for folks then entering the city of Schenectady onto also other places like Balltown Road as far as Environment One. It's eluding me what the other Schenectady Internet, not it used to be Schenectady International, the SI Group. So that is a heavily trafficked road in general, just from a commuting perspective. I don't have any data as to whether there is an identified speed issue there at this time. I think it's something that we should monitor. I know we have a lot of patrol officers that tend to sit on that roadway as much as possible during commuting times to attempt to slow that traffic if there is a speeding concern, and we'll continue to do that as well. Some ongoing citizen issues. The past meeting, Jennifer Semenek asked about a crossing guard on Union Street near Cornelius. We don't have any data on that yet as far as how many students are actually crossing at that intersection. It's something that I'm gonna have to get with the deputy chief on and decide how we're going to get some sort of a survey regarding that. Mary Sauter, again, at the last meeting, talked about crosswalk markings on Knott Street from VA Village to ShopRite. And I know the Public Safety Committee meeting had some discussion last meeting about this. I did speak to Superintendent Ray Smith regarding this. There are two different points, it appears, on Knott Street East where there are crosswalk signage from, they're like the neon green, and it looks like two people crossing the road. And I think if we were to make some sort of recommendation, I think we need to look at which part of that roadway would be most appropriate, because now we have a secondary apartment complex being put in. I know there's a bus stop where the initial more towards what would be considered the western, if there were two different parts of the crosswalk, there's kind of that initial part where ShopRite Plaza crossing over from where between Van Antwerp Village and the new complex would be. And then there's another one further up where there's a bus stop where there's kind of a sidewalk that goes across, and that would be another potential identified area as well. And when I was talking to Ray about it, the line of sight issue, I think it's something we need to really look at to determine what would be most appropriate if we were to make that recommendation, as far as which one, where we would put the crosswalk based on line of sight and need from the community. So I think that's something we need to just kind of discuss further and look at.
Yeah, the further one up there by the post office, there are actually like they put sort of two sidewalks in there.
They
right?
did.
But there is no crosswalk there.
There is no
Walk
crosswalk.
to the gate at Van Antwerp Village, you go up, goes right across, and then, there's blacktop or concrete on the other side, a
Sure.
walk on the other side. But we should look at that because, as you said, with the new apartment building being built there, and more people are going to be
Correct.
down a little bit further. But we should probably try to get one in that.
Yeah, I think it's
area.
really about looking at it further to decide which one would be most appropriate, not whether or not we should do one. I think that,
Yep.
and I think we should do one.
Agreed.
Community events, the the
I'm
Hudson Mall.
sorry, we got,
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Go ahead. Yes.
Seth, give you the microphone there. Here he is.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for your service,
Thank you.
and I appreciate you listening to my concerns. I'm here on behalf of the residents who live on Story Avenue, the hillside part of Story Avenue. We've had frequent accidents there, and as you are aware from other conversations here, that Google Maps is very helpful in a lot of ways, getting us to where we need to go. But also it creates havoc on that street. We have tractor trailer trucks coming up and down that hill. And I've been there for 25 years now. And when my sons were young, they used to get a little bus that would go down the hill to pick them up to go to school. But the buses would never even come up the hill at that point in time. Now we have buses flying up and down the hill. We have accidents. We have last week we had a large tow truck that was going up the hill, and it lost its brakes trying to turn and came down the hill and smashed into my neighbor's vehicle, and it flew into and landed in my yard and was totaled. And so we did have a police officer who was kind enough to come out, of course, and take the reports, but he parked in the middle of the road. So people are still coming down the hill and going up the hill, but now they can't get by. So they're turning around at the top of the hill and the bottom of the hill, trying to get to where they're going. And On the 23rd, that was the 28th. The 23rd, there was a tractor trailer truck that was going up the hill. He tried 3 times to make the turn and he couldn't make it. So he backed down the hill and it looked like he was losing his brakes. So he was bouncing down the hill. And there was a gentleman who was in the road. I videotaped it. And I said, I think it would be a good idea for you to turn around my driveway and go back down because I didn't know. But we have 6 houses on one side coming down the hill, and we have 8 houses on the other side going up the hill with one business at the bottom of the hill. It's a 30-mile-an-hour zone from the top of the hill to the 5th house down. It turns into a 20-mile-an-hour zone, and then maybe a hop, skip, and a jump. It's a stop sign. And it's a throughway. So as the gentleman who was here for Wyoming, people are speeding up and down that hill very fast. We have children who are walking to school. And anyone here, have they ever gone up the hill on Story Avenue? They have. And have you ever gone up during the winter time? Because that was entertainment for my children and I. Because we would look out the window and see if they could make it or not. And I'm not trying to make light of it. It's just that there's so much, it's a dangerous area. And I have taken many, many pictures of accidents on the road, including my mom who had an accident at the top of the hill. When people are coming off of Balltown Road to take a left, especially onto Story Avenue, they can't really navigate where the side of the road that they're supposed to be on, which is the right side. They turn into the middle of the road because of the way the hill is. So when people are coming up the hill, the people coming into the hill are coming into the middle of the hill, and the people coming up the hill are coming up on the right side of their side of the hill. And that's where most of the accidents are happening. And I just wanted to bring it to your attention that there are also, I'm aware that it is a throughway for the EMS and the fire department to get to where they need to go in Niskayuna. And there are signs on that one side of the street coming down the hill. There's 2 signs, one at the top of the hill and one at the bottom of the hill. It says there are no parking on that side of the street, but that has not been enforced. So that also creates 2 cars parked on one side and cars parked on the other, which creates when the people are coming up the hill and down the hill, having to maneuver around those cars. And in 25 years that I've been living there, I don't believe that I have ever seen a fire truck go up the hill to take a right onto Story Avenue. They have always come down the hill. They have never gone up the hill that I've ever seen. The EMS trucks do. But my concern is if the fire trucks aren't going back up the hill, then it's probably because it's a difficult area to turn into, especially with the traffic being as heavy as it is now after 25 years of being there, living there on Balltown Road going both ways. You have to wait for a break in that traffic to take that turn. And for tractor trailer trucks or anyone who is in a regular car, you really have to step on the gas to get out, and so I'm not exactly sure aware of what happened on the 28th with the tow truck, but he did say he lost his brakes. Now, I'm thinking that's a lot of weight going up a hill with trying to wait for the traffic to, clear to get enough time to pull out with a rig like that and the weight that it's carrying to get out of the hill to the right. And some people take a turn to the left, which not a lot of people do, but they do. At one point in time, we had a tow truck go up the hill just in the last, within the last year. And the car came off the tow truck because it was in an angle and it snapped the cable, I guess. And it went into one of our neighbors' foundation and put a hole in it. So this is something that maybe you would want to, look into the data for the accident reports on that road. I'm not exactly sure, but the neighbors and I have talked about maybe it would be beneficial to be a one-way going down the hill. It's just my thought of how we can make it a safer place for our children who walk up and down that hill to go to Van Antwerp or the high school or the hillside. And also, I'd like to say that the buses go up the hill really fast too, just so you're aware.
Well, thank you for being here and sharing your concerns. I know that this, for over many years now, I think this has been kind of a discussion, the Story Ave area. If I remember previously, even watching meetings as the PBA president a number of years ago, I know people had brought up concerns about this area. It is a tough roadway coming off of Balltown between Van Antwerp. It's if I recall correctly, there is a high volume. I believe the deputy chief had done a study, and there is a high volume of traffic vehicles going through. I don't recall what the data specifically stated is about speeds or anything of that nature. I can look into that more.
Can I just say one more thing also is that there are trees and brush at the top of the hill where the sign is that says 30 miles an hour. And it is very difficult if you're in a regular vehicle to see when you're looking to the left to get cleared to go to the right or the left. So that may be something that could be, fixed easily for that brush to be cut down so at least people can see better getting out of the hill.
I think we need to talk to Stan Faminsky about possibly no truck traffic. I don't know what the status is with that road. He looked into this when we were looking at trucks on Dean Street. Possibly we could say that's local traffic only, no trucks. And possibly we'd have to talk to the state whether we could say no left turn from Balltown down the hill to try to, because as I said earlier, I've never seen so many people take a left, go down that road off of Balltown Road. in
Yeah,
all my years living
it's
here.
very, very, very high
It's-
traffic
It is.
there.
It is.
And I believe one of the reasons why is that, going from Van Antwerp, say you're coming from Grand and you want to get into Balltown, a lot of people just fly up the hill to get to Balltown,
should
take
be
a right
going down
instead of
Van
going,
Antwerp
because you
to
can't go to
Union
CVS
Street.
like where the light is and take a right. So it causes it to be more of a high traffic road.
Right, but your GPS tells you to go that way rather than take a right at the top of Grand Boulevard, go down Van Antwerp to Union Street. It's really the
Exactly.
more,
And then even when you
preferred
get down to, I mean, it seems like the traffic in Niskayuna has increased, quite a bit naturally anyway. But I think, it would be good for at least our town to look into, seeing if at least we can get the tractor trailer trucks off the road and maybe seeing if there can be some other signs that maybe on the top and bottom of the hill where you can park or you can't park, or I don't know all the solutions. I'm just coming here to bring this to you to maybe help give you an idea, as you already are aware that you've gone up and down the hill yourselves, so that you know what it's like to be on Story Avenue. And I think the property values on our street, it would decrease if we were to having, a problem selling our houses with such traffic on the street too. I mean, I'm just including that,
yeah, no, thank you for coming today.
Yeah, we really appreciate that.
All right. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
listening. I appreciate it.
So moving on to community events, the Hudson Mohawk Marathon is going to be held October 10th of 2021. The course is in the process of being changed to facilitate the fact that the actual race coordinators have, in speaking with them, a lack of volunteer staffing due to COVID reasons and other circumstances. So we anticipate the new course being actually starting inside of our jurisdiction. In years past, this started at Central Park in the city of Schenectady, and we helped facilitate the runners as they passed through our town, which was a great undertaking with multiple intersections. This course change presents its own set of problems in that now we are the actual staging and beginning area. It's something new to us that we are going to work through with the course racers. We've begun creating an operational plan for that. The deputy chief is going to be facilitating that moving forward with my support. We're going to have a Google meeting here, hopefully in the next day or so, to discuss this new kind of race plan course. Just so town residents know, there will be something sent out on the town website email regarding the course itself, because even though we're going to be staging at the Niskuna Rec Center, the race, from my understanding, is actually going to have to begin on Banker Ave in order to facilitate the correct amount of distance for the race itself. So we will be anticipating on the 10th having to basically create a one-way traffic pattern down Banker Ave for a drop-off point at the rec center, for then the racers to walk back up Banker Ave, at which time we'll have to close it to begin the race. They'll be running through the rec center, down to Aqueduct Road, east on Aqueduct, and then onto the bike path, where it should hopefully be a seamless transition once we get to that point. There are a number of concerns we're working through. The permit is only for eastbound traffic to be closed. I don't have any options in that. I contacted the county, and that's what the permit says. And we're looking to work through those things real time to hopefully have a successful, safe race for everybody. And I just want to thank, the auxiliary PD for being a part of the Schenectady County Sheriff's, have been excellent in helping facilitate this as well. And the race organizers, Chief Lingenfelter and I have been speaking about this from an EMS perspective. If I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize. Everyone's been excellent in assisting me with trying to real time quickly, Brian Backus as well, I have to mention Brian, to real time facilitate this race with this transition, because it is a great undertaking. We anticipate about 750 to 1,000 racers. So
It's a lot.
we shall see how that works, and we're excited about it. The farmers market continues weekly and appears to have good attendance. We continue to support that as much as we can. It's an excellent community event. Moving on to the town clerk, Michelle Martinelli. Michelle, you're here. You requested that we have a conversation regarding the upcoming APF contract. Do you want to speak to that, Michelle?
Sure. I was just wondering if there was any updates from the last meeting that Michelle and I had with Paul Briggs and Deputy Chief Stevens. Main concerns are, what we're going to do with the dangerous dogs, and also changing the contract. The contract is up at the end of the year, and somehow if we can change the APF collecting their own fees. I don't know if you have any updates on that.
I do that. So we are still struggling to find a location to take our dangerous dogs. That's still a problem. But with respect to the contract, we're working with APF to try to find a better method for payment in particular.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Michelle also had put out there the early voting day schedule is who I received it through. I don't know if that begins with you, Michelle, but that's who I initially received it through. I had attached that as a part of what I sent out to the committee here. I don't know if anybody has any comment about that at all.
So yeah, I just wanted to make everybody aware that we're going to have early voting here at Town Hall. It starts Saturday, October 23rd, and early voting ends Sunday, October 31st. Various times, it's not the same time every day, so we will have a increase of people coming through Town Hall. not only residents, but anybody can use this as a voting site. So I know Charlie is going to help me set up the, hopefully in one door, out the other door for a flow of traffic. And then just make you aware of the opening and closing of the doors. Poll workers have to be here an hour before the polls open to set up.
Okay. Okay. I know we spoke about the court issues. I don't think.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. I know we spoke about the court issues already with the proposed resolution attached. Both judges have left, so I'm assuming we don't have any other discussion regarding that. Fire departments, Chief William Felter, thank you for being here. Do you have anything to add for fire department?
Just a couple things. As you had mentioned, Chief, we are going to be participating in the active shooter training on the 16th and 17th, and of course we'll be providing some EMS coverage for the Hudson Mohawk Marathon as well. Some of you may have seen it in the news recently, the issue with what we call parking of ambulances at the emergency rooms is a real issue. It's not just in our area, it's a statewide issue. I think a lot of it stems back to just the shortage of nursing in the hospitals, and it's essentially a domino effect where if they can't get patients, if they can't open beds in the hospital, they can't get patients out of the ER into the beds. And consequently, we can't get patients into the ER, and we end up sitting outside the emergency room with a patient in an ambulance, sometimes measured in hours as opposed to minutes. So just something that, you know, people should be aware of if they unfortunately find themselves headed to the ER in one of our ambulances. There's a lot of things going on that are outside of our control, but we you know, we continue to roll, and so far haven't had any untoward effects towards any of our patients yet. We are also working with Fire District 2 and the Rexford Fire District on our fire prevention activities in the schools. Unfortunately, because of COVID, the in-person assemblies that we would typically do we aren't able to do, but our folks are working on some remote training options. They've developed some videos. They're going to be doing some virtual tours of the fire stations for the classrooms, and also a rewards type program for students who do some home escape plan development. They can submit those for potential prizes. Working with the teachers and the administrators in the school district to, you know, get the message into the classrooms, and so far it seems to be pretty well received. Other than that, I think we have our district-wide safety committee coming up on the 18th, and that's about it from the fire service side.
Thanks, Chief. School district, I don't see anybody here from the school district specifically. Moving on to personnel, Officer Favada, who is our newly hired lateral transfer, has completed his in-service training and is now in the community counting and staffing. We're really excited about that. John's been doing an excellent job. I received feedback from somebody that was assigned to him, Officer Brian Connor, who's a certified field training officer. John is very familiar with this community. He was able to expeditiously get up and running. He was very familiar with the inner workings and the report writing mechanisms and all these good things. And John is out there. And so if you see a new face, his name is John Favada. Make sure you smile and say hi to him and introduce yourself, and he will do the same as well. We're excited about him. I recently put out a release to the town of Niskayuna website and social media for potential lateral police officer candidates. So far, and this is actually an update to this agenda, I've received 5 resumes. We are currently obtaining further information on the candidates and are excited about potentially having viable candidates to fill vacant positions with the support of the Police and Public Safety Committee and the town board. So we're going to be moving through that process here and looking at these viable candidates to identify who is a good fit for our town and for our needs, and we're excited about that. So one of our members, who's been one of our longest tenured members, Detective Mark Florell, has officially announced his last day of service. His last day of service is going to be October 31st of this year. I just want to touch on a couple things. I don't want to go too deep into it because Mark is not a person that necessarily wants attention. He didn't want a piping out ceremony, but I told him he's not allowed to ghost out of our town without some sort of recognition. Because when you do 42 years of service and dignified service, you need to be acknowledged and recognized. So I just want to touch on a couple things with regards to Mark Florell. Just a quick bio on Mark. Mark was born in Goshen, New York, and he was a Mahonison graduate in 1974. When I looked at his personnel file regarding his employment, he listed as his pre-employment that he was a mill worker with J.C. Klein in Rotterdam. And there's not a whole lot of mill workers probably still around in that area, and a lot of us more youthful folks probably don't even know what a mill worker is at this point. So that kind of, I'm not trying to date Mark, but it shows what kind of a man he was and where he came from. At the age of 23, he was appointed to patrolman on September 18th of 1979 under then Chief John M. McGovern and Town of Niskuna Supervisor Edwin D. Riley Jr. And so for anyone listening that remembers those days, that was quite a while ago. He successfully completed basic police training December 7th of 1979 out of Colony. He was assigned to our detective division on January 4th of 1990 by then Chief Mark Salahab. Again, just kind of giving you a timeline of that 42 years of service. So what are some of Mark's achievements? Mark received the Chief's Commendation Award over 10 times throughout his career. Award programs is something we're going to have to get back to because I think recognition of police officers in general is important, particularly the amazing staff that we have here. And those awards were given, prior to even my service. That's how long ago we're looking at for all those awards. And that's a lot of awards for that time frame. He was awarded Exceptional Duty Award twice, which is kind of the gold mark standard for going above and beyond for exceptional duty. And he was recognized twice by the New York State Assembly for his service to our community as well, for his investigations and things of that nature. So just some closing remarks on Mark. Mark Florell is the consummate professional, and his outstanding service and dedication are a testament to his character as a person and a police officer. Mark's greatest strengths have been his attention to detail and investigative mind. Our community has benefited greatly from his service as an incredible investigator whose abilities have given our community justice and closure to hundreds of cases. The loss of his experience and knowledge is going to be hard to fill, so we hope he keeps his phone and radio close as he always has. Mark has served his community for over 42 years. I want to congratulate him on his service, and I want to wish him well in his retirement. And we really want to say thank you to Mark for everything you've done for this community. Thanks for being, an amazing, outstanding member of our police department and our community. So, moving on in personnel, we have a lieutenant's vacancy that we're currently looking at possibly addressing. This became vacant upon the promotion of retired acting chief Wall. It's something I hope to discuss with the Public Safety Committee meeting in the town board moving forward, as we do have a potential candidate on that list that we could potentially move forward with that support.
We gotta hurry up.
Okay. Closest car, police MOA. I'm just going to get a little quicker here. State park land between River Road, Whitmire Drive, Rosendale Road, and Lock 7 Road. I attached the proposed MOA. That MOA was signed, I believe, in 2018 by all the chiefs and sheriffs in Schenectady County. They're asking for an addendum whereby that parcel of land, there would be a change for response in terms of who's being dispatched. What was explained to me by the state police when I had contact with them regarding this is obviously that piece of land, because it's state property and because the New York State Police have absorbed the state parks police, they're looking for a change in that. And I think that's something that we need to discuss kind of moving forward about how we're going to handle, because we are the only municipality with which this affects in all of Schenectady County. So I think that's something we need to continue to talk about out loud as being a part of that process. And I'm looking to guidance from our town attorney regarding that.
Yeah, that's an excellent issue, because we have a number of issues with that parcel of land that we are just trying to address as it relates to cleanup, as it relates, just all the variety of issues that when you just suddenly get a state park. So maybe we add this for your agenda next month. and
We can.
we'll-
We certainly can.
Okay.
We certainly can.
Ghetto, it's a ghetto issue. It's a lot of people touch on it.
The marijuana opt-out clause, I know this has been an ongoing discussion. I spoke with Councilman McPartlin and also Laura Robertson regarding this.
Yeah, this, I don't mean to interrupt you,
Go
but I'm looking into this. I'm doing some research on this, so I'll be able to report more on this rather than, it's a more complicated issue than just passing a resolution.
Understood?
It's because of our current situation where we have areas in the town where you can't do this. It's become a question of the need for this. So I'm researching it and I'll be able to report back to the town board and to each of the respective committees.
I put some materials for Laura after Laura's meeting on Friday. I'll get them over to you as well, as, what other municipalities. have done.
She actually, I asked her to send me what you sent her and I've already read that.
Pretty good, right,
Yep.
Laura? I mean, that really, I think it gives us a roadmap as to how to,
Yeah, I was reading that. I definitely think that makes sense
okay,
from that standpoint.
great. So I'll help with that as well. Laura and I've been talking, so.
Thanks, Chief.
That's all I have regarding this agenda. Does anybody have anything else to add? Subtractions? Anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Can we go into?
So if we need, do we need executive session?
Can we speak really quick in executive session?
Sure. Yep. So I believe I know what we need to go into executive session about. So before we adjourn, I'm going to make a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Public Officers Law, Section 105, subsection F, to discuss the employment history of a particular person or persons, also to discuss the medical history of a particular person or persons. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're going to discuss brief executive session at the conclusion